God bless you and welcome back for more lessons with Professor Smith from a Hebraic perspective or a biblical perspective or an ancient language perspective, actually. So as always with our videos, we want to make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, and share. Like the videos, subscribe to the channel, comment, and share. We are posting regular videos, and it's important because we're learning concepts for today from the biblical perspective. Having been literate or trained in the original language, we get a different twist on what's relevant in terms of scripture. And so this channel will be very helpful for all aspects of life. So today we want to talk about something interesting. We want to talk about the common phrase we use in theology, is God here or is God nowhere? I'll explain in a moment. But the key thing to remember is context. And let's explain, and I'll show you why right now. Now, keep in mind, when you think about the Bible or you think about the Torah, you're talking about a language that existed thousands of years ago. The Bible, the Torah, it wasn't originally written in English. It was an ancient language, and so our Bible basically consists of Hebrew, Koine Greek, which is important, it's different than the Zodiates, classical Greek, and then also, or modern Greek, and then you also have Aramaic, and then there's a little bit of Latin because of the transition between the Grecian Empire and the Roman Empire. Bottom line is, it's an ancient language, it's an ancient customs, and those things are important when we understand what the Bible means today. So, you look at the Bible, for example. When it was originally written, you had, it was written like this, okay? This is how the Bible, the Hebrew was written. It's written from right to left. That's the Ivrit, that's the Hebrew. So, as you notice as I'm writing in big letters, but you notice as it's written, there's a constant flow. The original scriptures and manuscripts when studying in Israel, in the Middle East, and in the Qumran caves, where they found all of the scrolls and the papyri, you would see that the writing, there was no period, there was no comma, there was no question mark. The original language just had letters that went on and on and on and on. No breaks, no colons, no semicolons, no question marks, just all one form written in a continual cycle. In terms of scholarship or understanding scripture, the key is context. Context is paramount, because if you don't know the context, you won't be able to decipher what was written. So for example, if I were reading an ancient Jewish document, say I was reading the Torah in the original language without punctuations, it would read something like this in English. So now we look at this phrase and we're saying, what is it saying? Is it saying God is nowhere? Or is it saying God is now here? God is nowhere, or God is now here. That's how it would look in the original Hebrew. That's how it would look in the Koine Greek. It was just a continuous verbiage that would go on and on and on and on and on. And the Hebrew is actually more complicated because the letters in Hebrew actually can mean numbers. A letter in Hebrew can be a preposition. A letter or character in Hebrew can stand for a conjunction. So it's important to know that context is paramount. So how would we answer the question, what is being said? God is now here, or God is nowhere? Since we don't have accurate question marks, commas, colons, punctuation, how would we be able to know what that sentence was saying if we were looking at it from the original language? We have the luxury of having our Bibles already written for us. The Bible is already written in a format that's so nice. There's capital letters, there's lowercase letters, there's periods, there's question marks, there's commas, there's colons, there's semicolons. They're even broken down into chapter and verse. You see, that wasn't even discovered till like 1546 by Robert Stephanus. Prior to that, the verses and the chapters were non-existent. They were just a bunch of letters that went on and on and on and on. So you're looking at a passage, you're looking at a scripture, and you say, now what is it saying? God is now here, or God is nowhere. How do we know what is being said? We know by context, 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 context. When you study the scripture, you have to ask yourself some questions. What is being said? To whom is it being said to? Where? Where was it happening? What was the circumstances around it? Why? Why is it being asked? Is it a question that the disciples are asking? Is it a question that the people are asking? All of these are important to be able to determine what truly is being said. To just look at a statement on face value and assume you know what it's talking about will get you in error. So if you looked at the sentence, God is now here or God is nowhere, if you felt a certain way, you can read that a certain way. But we know that we're not just going by our feelings, we're going by facts. And so the facts would suggest that you understand the context in which the statement was written. You ask those interrogational questions, the who, what, where, when, why, and how, so that you fully understand the context. In the context, you would see that it would be saying more like God is now here, as opposed to God is nowhere. But it depends. It depends on what the sentence is. That is not a scripture in the Bible. That's an example in English so that you can understand how it's hard to understand if you don't know context. So what you're getting from this lesson is to know that the original languages did not have question marks. They did not have punctuation marks. They did not have all these grammatical marks that we have today. In the original language, there was an ongoing display of letters that or characters that kept going and going and going. It was a run-on. Later on, it got confusing. So they came up with punctuation marks. They came up with periods. They came up with colons and semicolons. They came up with chapters. They came up with verses. So when I say everybody turn to this Exodus 25, it won't take 45 minutes for everybody to look for it. We could just go to the chapter, go to the verse. So that was created like in the 1500s. Prior to then, it was a struggle. Church probably lasted forever because you couldn't get nobody to get to the scripture because they'll take them all day trying to find it. Is that a number? Is that a preposition? Is that a period? Where would it start? Where would it end? And so we have to understand with that, the implementation of periods and commas and question marks, and with those things imposed on scriptures, we do find areas where they weren't done so accurately. And so later on in other videos or in school, if you sign up for Long Beach Christian College, where I'm teaching the Hebrew class, you can get more detail on it. You will find out that there is more emphasis. You'll find out why there are some copyist errors or some contextual errors in terms of how it was broken down. So remember, the important thing to take away from this is that it is important to read carefully. If you want to read through the Bible in a year, that's fine. Get yourself like a new NIV or something like that. Read it for the stories, read it for understanding what happened, where, and who did what. But in terms of trying to get scholarship or manuscript, you might want to stick with something like the King James or the NASB. but I suggest a few Bibles, a few different Bibles that do different things so that you can get a better picture. But just don't run away with just one Bible, especially like an NIV, and try to get like scholarly exegetical stuff out of it. No, you're not, because you lose something in the translations. And like I said, later on videos or when you take my classes, you'll be able to get more in depth on it. All right, so hopefully you understand something about this. It means context is important. The reason why we have so many different versions of Christianity and so many theologies out there is because there's an issue with context. Who says what was said when it was said? Did you know the history? Did you know the culture? Did you know the grammar? Were those idiomatic expressions? Why did they say what they said? Do we take one little piece of scripture and make law out of it without understanding the whole concept or the context of what was being said? So in closing, read this thing very slowly and get some training and understand what you're reading, because you might be reading into something that's not really there. I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Talk to you. God bless.